In the gentle hush that follows the night's last breath, a medieval garden stirs to life beneath the softest spill of dawn. The world is washed in the faintest gold, and each tender blade and leaf stands quietly bathed in dim, silver-blue light. Along a narrow path of packed earth, the garden unfolds inside the low stone walls behind a timbered cottage. Rows of green stretch quietly, growing thick, where the earth has been nurtured for generations. Beneath a centuries-old pear tree, lettuce heads nestle low to the ground, their pale green leaves glistening with the secrets of nocturnal dew. Each droplet clings along every edge and vein, magnifying the gentle curves and veins in the morning's cool air. Around the lettuce, the dark soil is soft and fragrant, marked by the lines of careful hands and tools. The garden hums with just a faint stir, the brief movement of a bird's wing, the subtle ripple of a beetle passing beneath a leaf, and the patient breath of breeze that carries the promise of a quiet day. In the distance, the clay-tiled roofs of a village hint at life just stirring, but here the only sounds belong to the gentle murmur of nature. The boundaries of the world seem softened, as if everything has paused to watch the slow unfolding of dawn. The lettuce itself appears both strong and tender, the leaves cool and supple beneath the lacework of moisture. Each plant is spaced just far enough apart for sunlight to find the heart of every head. Dew gathers heavily in the hollows where the leaves fold, waiting for the first touch of sun to lift the droplets away. Across the garden, other green shapes settle in their beds, sage, thyme, and wild leeks, but it is the lettuce that draws the morning's attention, with its silky shine and almost translucent green. The air itself is gentle and damp, lightly scented with earth and faint sweetness rising from root and leaf. No footsteps yet disturb the peace. The garden seems to listen, breathing with slow steadiness as the world brightens by small degrees. Here in this slow and quiet hour, the humble lettuce waits, a silent marvel among the ancient rituals of nature and time. In many medieval villages, lettuce found a home among the patchwork beds of the herb garden, often just steps from the cottage door. Here the soil had been worked for years, sometimes even decades, by careful hands passing knowledge from one generation to the next. Lettuce was nestled beside patches of parsley, clusters of chives, and tufts of sweet marjoram. Each bed had its own quiet order, a blend of need and tradition. Gardeners often planted lettuce on the edge of these plots, where morning sunlight fell early, and the cool shade of taller plants offered protection as the day grew warmer. The tender greens flourished in this company, thriving in earth made rich by compost and manure. Pathways of beaten earth wound between the rows, marked by the footprints of those who came daily to tend, harvest, or simply observe the steady growth. Sometimes stone borders or woven wattle fences kept the garden's patterns neat and protected from wandering chickens or stray goats. The herb garden was more than a source of food. It was a tapestry of flavors, medicines, and gentle scents drifting over the walls. Lettuce was prized for its crisp, mild leaves, and in the spring, new seeds were pressed carefully into damp furrows, covered with a patient dusting of earth and hope. Gardeners kept watch for signs of slugs or insects, sprinkling ashes or planting marigolds nearby to help ward off pests. Rainwater collected from thatched roofs soaked into the soft ground, nourishing the roots as days passed. Children helped their elders carry water, break clods of dirt, or pluck weeds, learning which plants helped ailing bellies and which leaves made good soup or salad. In these gardens, lettuce shared its space with tangy sorrel, peppery cress, and even rows of onions or beans, each playing a part in the quiet harmony of daily cultivation. Over the weeks, the young lettuce leaves would spread and curl, growing strong and broad until the time for harvest arrived, their presence a gentle certainty in the rhythm of medieval life. The planting of lettuce followed the gradual rhythm of the changing seasons, a patient task, wrapped in quiet ceremony. When the first softness of spring settled over the land, gardeners prepared for planting by breaking the winter-hardened soil with wooden spades, their movements slow and steady. Shallow furrows were drawn with careful hands, each row a promise woven from memory and hope. Tiny black seeds were scattered along the lines, mixed with the gentle sift of earth, to protect them from hungry birds or the chill of lingering frost. For many days, there would be little to see, just the neat lines of slightly darker soil caught in the morning light, the hush of possibility growing in the earth below. Gradually, the smallest leaves would break through, pale green and trembling against the wind, encouraged by gentle spring rains and the warming kiss of sun. Gardeners, both old and young, watched the seedlings with quiet pride and tender vigilance, plucking away weeds and shielding the vulnerable shoots from curious insects. As the weeks drifted into summer, lettuce grew steadily, each head unfurling new layers of vivid green, fed by the softness of rain and the rich, dark earth beneath. Watering cans, forged from clay or hammered tin, ferried creek water to the thirsty roots, especially during spells of heat. Sometimes, the midday sun would threaten to scorch the lettuce, so families shaded the garden beds with woven mats or branches collected from nearby woods. Patience guided every decision, from the gentle loosening of soil around the roots to the timing of each harvest. Never too soon, so the leaves would be sweet and full, and never too late before the heat turned them bitter. In deepest summer, seeds from the strongest plants were collected and dried, tucked away in small cloth pouches to ensure future plantings. By autumn, the garden quieted as the last tender harvests were gathered, and leaves yellowed at the edges. Through every season, the simple care of lettuce became a soft, ongoing partnership between people and the fertile land, a slow tradition repeated year after year, linking past to present with every gentle touch. In the early light, medieval gardeners carried tools that were shaped by hand and custom, as much as by necessity. The spade was usually made from hard, aged wood, its handle polished smooth by years of use. The head was sometimes banded with a strip of iron, hammered flat at the village forge, and fastened tightly with leather or twine. There were small hoes for loosening packed earth, their blades curved and worn shiny by repeated use in close quarters around roots and seedlings. Larger gardens sometimes saw the use of a fork, its tines strong enough to break apart heavy clods crafted from the thick branch of an ash or oak tree. Trowels made from scraps of metal or shaped from strong wood were perfect for moving young plants from one patch of soil to the next. Each tool was treasured, cleaned carefully after work, and often handed down from a parent to a child, carrying the stories of countless seasons and harvests. When a handle cracked or a blade dulled, repairs were made slowly and deliberately, never wasting what might still be useful. With these humble tools, gardeners moved through the rows with quiet intention. They bent close to the earth, their hands steady and sure as they eased aside stones, worked weeds from the roots, and gently pressed the soil around delicate green shoots. The work rarely brought quick results, but the pace itself carried a kind of calm. Birds called softly from the hedges, and the air held the faint scent of fresh-turned soil. Now and then, the low murmur of voices, or a brief, low laugh would blend into the quiet, adding warmth to the solitude. Work began early and often finished just as the sun crossed its highest arc, leaving the afternoons for other tasks or simple rest. In the evenings, the gardeners rinsed their hands in water drawn from a well, feeling the coolness seep into skin marked by earth and sun. For them, tending lettuce and herbs was both chore and comfort, a slow, grounding rhythm that linked their days to the renewal of the land, one small, steady gesture at a time. Inside the stone cottage, the day's first meal unfolded in gentle routine. The hearth glowed with a soft orange light as the mother reached for a wooden bowl, while her eldest child pulled a handful of fresh lettuce from a woven basket on the table. The leaves, picked just that morning, still glistened with the last traces of dew. Worn hands worked with familiar grace, separating each head and shaking away any loose bits of soil. Water from a clay jug was poured into a basin, and the lettuce was washed gently, each leaf carefully checked for hidden insects or stray clumps of earth. The room filled with the green scent of cut leaves and the warmth of baking bread. Outside, the youngest child fetched eggs from the henhouse and a bunch of onions from the garden, each ingredient adding a fresh note to the meal's simple harmony. The table itself was a map of the family's labor. Bread baked the night before, a small wheel of cheese wrapped in cloth, slices of root vegetables saved from last autumn's harvest, and, that day, the tender new lettuce that tasted of spring. The lettuce might be served on its own, dressed with a bit of oil and vinegar, a rare treat, or layered with herbs and crumbled cheese, eaten slowly while the soft sounds of home surrounded the family. Sometimes it was added to a warm pottage or pressed flat between thick slices of dark bread, lending a cool bite to the texture and flavor. The family shared quiet thanks before eating, each person pausing to admire the freshness and color brought to their meal by the season's earliest greens. Every mouthful was a reminder of careful planting, patient weeding, and the gentle partnership with the land. Lettuce was more than just food. It was a mark of hope after the starkness of winter, and a small celebration of the garden's renewal. As the meal came to a close, crumbs were swept from the table, and the last few leaves of lettuce disappeared, savored with the simple gladness reserved for things grown by hand and shared among loved ones. Long before the science behind plants was understood, medieval villagers looked to old wisdom to guide their eating and healing habits. Among the many beliefs whispered from parent to child and repeated in quiet corners of the home, lettuce held a special reputation. People spoke of how the gentle green leaves, when eaten at the evening meal, could bring about a sense of calm and help restless minds find peace at nightfall. Stories passed down from herbalists and monks suggested that lettuce contained a cooling spirit, one that could soothe heated tempers, calm nervous worry, and hush the noise of a busy day inside one's head. It was common to hear that those who suffered troubled sleep might eat a little lettuce with supper, hoping to drift quietly into restful dreams. Even the slow, tender way lettuce grew was thought to hint at its peaceful nature, as if the plant itself imparted its gentle spirit to those who cared for it and consumed it. This reputation was not just village lore. It reached into monastery gardens and was written in the pages of old herbal texts. Medieval healers and monks often described lettuce as a calming herb, and would sometimes include it in evening brews or soft salads meant for those who were anxious or weary. The cool, moist quality of lettuce, as they saw it, was the perfect answer to the dryness and restlessness believed to cause sleeplessness. Some parents encouraged their children to nibble a few leaves before bed on particularly restless nights, murmuring the hope that dreams would be sweet and free of trouble. This gentle wisdom, drawn from observation and tradition, made its way into daily routines and quiet rituals. Even the act of preparing lettuce, the slow washing, the patient tearing of leaves, was said to bring a sense of peace, a small and steady comfort, as evening light softened and the day's toil ebbed away. In this simple way, lettuce became not only food, but a promise of comfort and rest, a belief that carried softly through generations, woven into the heart of medieval daily life. In the gentle rhythm of medieval evenings, lettuce was often thought to carry a subtle magic, one rooted not in spells, but in the quiet influence it seemed to hold over the body and mind. Healers and wise women, drawing on observation and tradition, described lettuce as having a mild sedative power. Its leaves, soft and cool to the touch, were thought to contain a hidden essence, able to quiet nerves and settle the restless spirit. In gardens where the world's noise faded into the slow hum of bees, picking and handling lettuce became more than simple work. Even in the way lettuce drooped in the sun or clung to the earth with gentle insistence, villagers found evidence of its supposed calming effect. When someone in the household felt overworked, anxious, or unable to find rest, a plate of fresh lettuce might appear at the table, offered as a practical gesture of care. Some believed that even the faint, milky juice hidden within the thick ribs of the plant was a sign that lettuce could soothe an unsettled mind and help sleep find its way to a weary home. This idea shaped many small rituals in the daily lives of those who farmed and cooked. Lettuce might be added to evening stews or served as a simple salad before bedtime, its place in the meal chosen purposefully as dusk settled and candles flickered along wooden tables. Herbal manuscripts penned by monks sometimes described lettuce's effect in gentle Latin phrases, suggesting that it was cooling to the humors and beneficial for those whose days had brought tension or excitement. In practice, this meant that lettuce was offered most often during times of worry, harvest exhaustion, or too much celebration. Neighbors spoke quietly of its value not as a strong medicine, but as a soft, natural ally in the quest for calm. Through these customs, lettuce became associated with restful nights and peaceful moods, an unassuming plant that carried in every leaf a whisper of tranquility to all who cared for it. In the quiet shelter of her small, thatched cottage, at the edge of the village, the local healer moved with gentle purpose. Her table, carved from a sturdy oak plank, was scattered with fresh herbs and gathered leaves, each with its own familiar scent. Lettuce nestled in the center of her work, its pale green edges peeking out from beneath sprigs of sage and mint. With steady hands, the healer separated the outer leaves from the inner heart, setting aside the crispest pieces for her remedies. She placed the leaves in a ceramic bowl and poured cool spring water over them, letting them soak and release their softness into the liquid. This water, she believed, could ease headaches or quiet restless children, its gentle bitterness bringing calm when the noise of the world grew too loud. Sometimes she simmered the leaves with chamomile flowers, creating a mild tea that villagers drank before bed, trusting in generations-old advice that it might bring peaceful dreams. The healer shaped her remedies with a sense of quiet ritual, drawing on memories of her own mother performing the same careful tasks. In the pale light falling through her open window, she mixed lettuce juice with honey to soothe sore throats, or crushed the tender leaves with a wooden pestle to make compresses for tired eyes. Each step was simple and slow, full of intention and respect for the plant's quiet power. She often reminded her visitors that nature's medicine worked gently, that the calm of lettuce was a gift to be accepted with patience. As news of her gentle cures spread through the village, neighbors would leave small tokens at her door, fresh eggs, a wedge of cheese, or woven baskets, in gratitude for her care. Whether she brewed lettuce tea for sleepless elders or pressed cool leaves against feverish brows, her work was grounded in kindness and a deep belief in the healing wisdom of the quiet garden. The remedies she made became part of daily life, woven softly into the fabric of those who lived and worked beneath the turning seasons, offering comfort and calm in humble, hopeful ways. The gentle act of touching fresh lettuce leaves in a medieval garden offered a quiet world of sensation. When a gardener's hand reached into the cluster of bright green, coolness greeted the skin first, a tender moisture left behind by the morning dew. The leaves felt smooth yet delicate, as if a breath might tear them, but with a surprising firmness at their core. Brushing a thumb over the raised veins revealed a faint, living texture, soft lines guiding touch to the heart of the plant. Each leaf bent softly in the hand, yielding with a natural spring, while droplets clung along each edge and traced small chills onto the fingers. Lifting the lettuce, the garden's scents rose up, a mix of clean earth, grass, and the almost sweet, green aroma found only in plants freshly cut from their roots. The rustle of leaves against one another made a sound as soft as silk, blending with the murmurs of nature to create a simple, grounding peace. Tasting fresh lettuce, just washed and torn, was its own gentle surprise. The first bite was crisp and cool, almost bursting with hidden water that washed quietly across the tongue. The taste was light, a subtle sweetness mixed with a faint trace of bitterness near the veins, as if the leaf remembered the soft rains and patient sun. As each mouthful was chewed slowly, there was an easy give beneath the teeth, a quiet crunch fading into softness. Chewing released more of the mild green flavor, refreshing yet never sharp, soothing the senses with something both new and deeply familiar. Sometimes, if the leaf had spent a cool night beneath the stars, it carried a gentle hint of the air and earth in which it had grown, a reminder of the closeness between food and soil. The experience was simple but complete, a moment of fresh clarity in the rhythm of daily life, a small, calming celebration of all that was honest and alive in the humble lettuce. To those living in medieval times, lettuce was more than just a plant for the table. In the world of herbal medicine, every leaf and root carried layers of meaning, and lettuce's cool, gentle nature made it a symbol of calmness and renewal. Healers believed that the plant's mild, moist quality offered balance against the heated or dry troubles that sometimes plagued the body and mind. The unassuming lettuce, so easily overlooked among a garden's color and chaos, became a quiet ally for those needing peace. Stories in herbal manuscripts often liken lettuce to a soothing hand, one that does not cure with force, but instead restores with patience. Its green color, always associated with new beginnings, health, and harmony, signaled to gardeners and healers alike that lettuce was a plant to cherish during life's restless moments. Some scribes even paired lettuce with words like humble or gentle in their notes, understanding that its healing was a gift that moved at the slow, natural pace of the earth. On a spiritual level, lettuce appeared in rituals and small blessings, woven into the rhythms of home and village life. Preparing lettuce for meals or remedies was itself seen as a way to invite quietness and gratitude into the day. The act of washing its leaves, sharing it among family members, or offering it to the sick was done with care, as if tending to the plant brought a measure of stillness to the spirit. In some places, lettuce was included in early spring festivals, its appearance a sign that winter's hardships were passing and gentler days were returning. Monks, too, often wrote of lettuce in the margins of their books, noting its use for both body and soul. While never the center of grand ceremonies, lettuce quietly found its place in prayers for health and restful nights, honored not for its boldness, but for its steadfast, quiet strength. In this way, the humble plant became a living reminder that healing and comfort are found in life's simplest, slowest growth, nourished by the soft hands and patient hearts of those who believe. Though lettuce was respected for its gentle, calming qualities, it was also met with a quiet caution in many medieval homes, especially when served to the ill or elderly. People believed that the same cooling nature that soothed restlessness could become a burden for bodies already weakened by age or prolonged sickness. Some worried that lettuce's mild bitterness and its natural chill might sap strength, leaving the vulnerable too weak, or making the blood sluggish in those who needed warmth to recover. Grandparents and neighborhood healers exchanged stories about times when a frail friend had nibbled a few too many leaves and spent the next mornings even more weary than before. Because of these beliefs, household cooks often hesitated before adding lettuce to the plates of the old or unwell, weighing tradition, advice from elders, and careful observation before serving even a simple salad at sunset. Instead, lettuce for those recovering was offered in small measures and prepared with extra care. It was sometimes cooked briefly in broth or warmed with herbs believed to bring warmth back into the body, parsley, mint, or a sprig of thyme, transforming the cool raw leaves into something milder and easier to digest. Children often listened carefully as mothers and grandmothers discussed what each family member might eat, and why one person was given lettuce in spring, while another waited for summer's heat to arrive. This cautious attitude was not grounded in fear, but in a loving respect for balance, a deep faith in the wisdom passed gently down through the years. Every meal became another act of care, a way to protect as well as to comfort. In this way, the serving of lettuce was never taken lightly. but instead became a small ceremony of observation and gentleness, honoring both the vulnerability of life and the time-tested lessons of the past. As the sun climbed over the rooftops, the village market became a gentle chorus of color and sound. Stalls lined a cobbled square, shaded with faded cloth and woven mats. Here, among baskets of roots and wooden casks of apples, market vendors displayed rows of leafy greens, their freshness drawing neighbors from all corners of the village. Lettuce heads, cool and tender, caught the early light, their green folds arranged carefully at the front of each stall. Beside them, bunches of wild sorrel and peppery cress leaned together in bundles tied with old string, their sharp scents mingling with the gentler aroma of spinach, beet tops, and tender herbs. Farmers and gardeners, most with soil still under their fingernails, spoke quietly to customers, offering advice on which greens were best for salads and which for stews. The rustle of lettuce leaves and the clink of coins blended with laughter and conversation as baskets were filled and recipes shared. Every market day brought small discoveries and familiar comforts. At one table, a seller's hands moved with practiced ease, trimming wilted spots from lettuce and wetting the leaves with a splash of fresh water to keep them crisp. Children reached eagerly toward the pile of greens, drawn by the smooth curves and cool colors, while elders paused to ask after the early harvest or exchange quiet gossip. Sometimes rare herbs or bitter wild leaves appeared, gathered from the woods or the banks of nearby streams, adding a touch of mystery and variety to the day's choices. The trade was more than barter. It was a gentle sharing of news, knowledge, and the steady pride of work well done. Greens found their way from garden plots to kitchen tables, winding through the lives of families and weaving the market crowd together in small, cheerful ways. Through every exchange, the simple act of selecting lettuce or a fresh bundle of herbs became a part of the season's slow, nourishing rhythm, a rhythm carried on long after the market's laughter had faded back into the quiet of the village. The marketplace was never just a place to buy and sell. It was the living heart of the village, a crossroads where goods mixed with stories and lives brushed gently against each other. As carts rattled over uneven stones and vendors called out greetings, the open air filled with the scents of earth, fresh bread, and green leaves. Here, every basket of lettuce, tuft of herbs, or bundle of wild greens had its own tale, passed along in soft voices beneath colorful canopies. Housewives compared notes on which stall sold the sweetest roots, while farmers boasted of the rainfall that made their lettuce especially tender this season. It was easy for time to drift in the market's easy pace, as people lingered near the herb sellers' tables to hear old remedies retold or learn a new recipe whispered from an out-of-town guest. In the shade by the well, a group of children traded wild fables alongside a handful of nuts, promising that lettuce left on the doorstep at midsummer would invite gentle dreams. Beyond the exchange of coins and goods, the market was a cradle for the village's folklore, a place where every transaction was laced with wisdom, superstition, and memory. Elders recounted tales of times when a single patch of lettuce had eased a fever, or, just as often, when too much had brought drowsy afternoons that threatened to linger into chores. Young and old alike shared cautious warnings, soft laughter, and the reassurance of being one voice in a chorus of many. Strangers brought news from distant towns, different ways to use greens, new market practices, or stories of a harvest blessed by surprising fortune. Through this gentle mingling, the practical shopping lists of daily life became woven through with the invisible threads of tradition and wonder. Every market day was its own chapter, written in the simple acts of buying, trading, and remembering, leaving behind not only the taste of fresh lettuce, but also the comfort of old beliefs and shared hopes, echoing long after the stalls had closed. As the sun dipped lower on the longest day of spring, the village square blossomed with signs of celebration. Families gathered beneath garlands made from wildflowers and ribbons, their faces bright with gentle anticipation. Tables appeared beneath the spreading branches of old trees, their surfaces crowded with clay bowls and wooden platters. The air was filled with the scent of trampled grass, sweet hay, and the faint perfume of herbs. Musicians tuned lutes and pipes, while children chased each other near the worn stone well, laughter spilling out like sunlight. Neighbors worked together, arranging chairs and carrying baskets from kitchen to square, everyone eager for the yearly festival's first shared meal. The soft clatter of cups and the steady hum of voices made a music of its own, weaving through the square and settling around the edges like a friendly mist. At the center of every table, platters of fresh salads glowed with color and life, shining leaves of lettuce piled high, glistening with droplets of spring dew, mingled with bright radishes, slivers of onion, and sprigs of mint and chervil. For many, these early greens were the star of the feast, a sign that winter's reserves had finally given way to the new season's plenty. The salads were simple yet beautiful, tossed gently with oil and a splash of vinegar, sometimes dusted with delicate crumbs of cheese gathered from the morning's milking. Grandmothers ladled out generous portions to children, who stared at the bright green mounds with curiosity and delight, while elders offered quiet words of thanks for the land's renewal. As bowls were passed, stories and hopes traveled with them, each bite of salad, a celebration both of what had grown and what still waited in the soil. The evening stretched warm and calm, the festival's quiet rhythms drawing the village together in gratitude, shared laughter, and the bright, humble joy of fresh food and company. Old superstitions drifted quietly through the village, lingering like morning mist in the corners of kitchens and gardens. Some believed that eating too much lettuce, especially at dusk or before bed, could bring a heaviness to the limbs and weigh down the spirit. This idea traced its roots to the same gentle qualities that made lettuce valued for calmness. People wondered if the plant's cooling, restful nature could go too far, sapping energy as well as worry. Mothers often warned busy children not to eat more than a handful in one sitting, fearful they'd become sluggish and slow for days afterward. Elders whispered that the sleepy feeling after a meal of thick salads or lettuce stew was no accident, but a sign to be careful. Even the garden's appearance, where lettuce heads seemed to bow and droop gently towards the earth, seemed to echo these beliefs, a silent cue to enjoy its gifts with respect and restraint. In other households, stories flickered at the edge of candlelight about the dreams that lettuce might stir. Some villagers said that the mild bitterness hiding at the heart of each leaf could slip into the night, weaving uneasy dreams if eaten in great amounts. A few grandmothers advised their families to save lettuce for daylight meals, leaving the evenings for warmer, heartier foods. Children listened to tales of heroes and villagers who slept too deeply after a supper of greens, waking with memories clouded by odd dreams or a stubborn sense of tiredness. Over time, these gentle warnings became woven into the fabric of mealtime decisions, shared not to frighten, but to remind everyone that food holds power beyond mere nourishment. In this way, the simple act of choosing when and how much lettuce to serve became a quiet dance with old beliefs, linking everyday meals to the long wisdom of those who had watched the same gardens grow long before. These gentle beliefs guided the hands that prepared every meal, shaping the rhythm of kitchens throughout each season. When a mother planned her family's food for the day, she thought carefully about who would eat each dish and when it would be served. Lettuce, with its coolness and subtle strength, was often reserved for midday meals when the sun was high and the body needed refreshment after morning chores. At lunch, a bowl of fresh leaves offered a welcome lightness, easing weariness without inviting the risk of heaviness or drowsiness that night meals might bring. Recipes were chosen with quiet intention, mixing lettuce with warming herbs or root vegetables, or layering it between slices of bread for balance. The elders' voices, soft reminders about moderation and season, echoed in each choice, guiding what appeared on the wooden table as much as the tools and ingredients themselves. As evening approached, families often set lettuce aside in favor of heartier, warmer foods, trusting the passed-down wisdom that linked the plant to dreams and deep sleep. Stews thickened with barley, root vegetables, or beans-filled bowls by the fire, while salads took a lesser place or vanished altogether after sunset. Even during festivals or gatherings, cooks remained mindful, offering just enough greens to celebrate spring's early bounty without testing old superstitions. Children might ask for a second helping and receive only a gentle smile and a promise for tomorrow. Through these customs, the lore surrounding lettuce became as real as the baskets brimming in the garden outside, giving invisible shape and comfort to the routine acts of chopping, baking, and serving. The result was a harmony at every meal, a balance of nourishment, comfort, and respect for the quiet mysteries spun through generations, whispering that each leaf and each choice connected the present table to a thoughtful, patient past. Soft, golden light flickered through the kitchen as the sun slipped behind the village roofs, casting gentle shadows across the stone floor. The family gathered around a wooden table, worn smooth by years of shared meals and conversations. Bread rested in a rough cloth, bowls steamed with a stew of beans and barley, and a small basket of tender lettuce leaves sat close to the edge, inviting quiet curiosity. The youngest child reached eagerly toward the greens, eyes bright with the memory of crisp, cool bites from earlier in the day. The grandmother, with silver hair tucked beneath a faded kerchief, paused her spoon and looked thoughtfully at the basket. In her soft voice, she reminded the others of old stories, how lettuce, gentle as it was, often brought heavy limbs and strange dreams if eaten at sunset. The father, washing his hands at the basin, trusted his mother's wisdom but glanced at the empty space on the table where a fresh salad might have been, considering the spring's early harvest and the day's hard work. Their gentle debate drifted like the steam rising from the stew, never sharp or hurried, only woven into the familiar hum of evening. Was a small taste of lettuce, mixed with warming herbs, truly risky at supper? The mother weighed the day's warmth and the tired faces at her table, remembering times the family finished late chores and slept soundly after a handful of greens. The eldest son gently argued that the world was changing, that younger voices in the marketplace spoke of new ways and new recipes, but even he hesitated to break with tradition completely. They decided together, at last, to set aside most of the lettuce for tomorrow's midday meal, keeping a few leaves for decoration and a single bite each, a quiet compromise between habit and hunger. Their choice, filled with care and respect, let the evening flow in peace. With gentle laughter and low conversation, supper continued, the family's small decision becoming one more invisible thread, connecting them to the comforting wisdom of those who had gathered in this kitchen long before. As the sun slipped behind the distant fields, the village softened into a calm evening hush. The cheerful clatter of day faded into a gentle background, replaced by quieter, steadier sounds. From open doorways, the rhythm of broom bristles swept over worn thresholds, mixing with the low hum of voices telling stories or exchanging news. A cart creaked slowly along the earthen road near the village square, its wooden wheels making a hollow knock that echoed for a heartbeat before slipping into the gathering dusk. Chickens fussed softly as they perched for the night, their quiet clucks weaving into the call of doves that settled under cottage eaves. Here and there, a dog barked once, a brief warning or welcome, before settling into its place beneath a bench or by a garden gate. The breeze carried the faintest touch of coolness, dancing through thatched roofs and causing the last leaves to rustle in the nearby gardens. Inside the cottages, sounds grew still more gentle. Spoons tapping against wooden bowls, the crackle of the hearth as flames shrank and coals glowed red, and the soft click of shutters drawn closed for the night. Children's voices drifted up stairwells and behind bedroom curtains, sometimes rising for a moment in laughter or playful protest, before growing quiet once again. In the small church at the edge of the village, a bell rang just once, a single note stretching across fields and gardens, signaling that work was truly finished and the night belonged to rest. The warm chorus of evening sounds blended with the natural world just beyond the garden walls. A fox padding through fallen leaves, crickets beginning their hidden song, and the distant splash of water from a stream winding past the last cottages. Together, these sounds composed the soft music of a village settling, an ancient lullaby guiding neighbors and families from the cares of the day into the peace and safety of another night. In the rhythm of medieval life, every meal was shaped by the natural cycles turning just beyond the garden gate. The rising and setting of the sun, the shift from cool rains to bright, warm days, all set the stage for what could be planted, gathered, and eventually brought to the table. Lettuce was the gentle herald of spring, its first tender leaves rising as the earth woke from winter's long slumber. Families watched the garden beds with quiet anticipation, knowing that when the chill lifted and soil grew soft, lettuce seeds would begin their slow climb to the surface. There was comfort in this predictability. The garden's offering told villagers not only what was for supper, but also how soon the seasons would turn, when roots would be pulled, when grains could be sown, and when it was time to let the land rest. This constant dance with nature's timing made every harvest precious, and every meal a celebration of patience rewarded. Lettuce did not appear in winter's hardest months. Instead, sturdy cabbages and preserved roots filled bowls by the hearth. When lettuce was finally ready, the village greeted it as a sign that warmer, easier days were just ahead. People learned to savor the brief season of fresh greens, understanding that their time was limited by both sun and soil. They carefully balanced what could be enjoyed now with what must be saved for leaner days, drying herbs, pickling vegetables, and storing grain against the promise of cold. This awareness of nature's cycles, of lack and abundance, of waiting and renewal, taught not only survival but also gratitude. Lettuce, humble and green, reminded everyone that food came from the steady partnership between human hands and an ever-changing earth, weaving a sense of patience and wonder into the heart of daily life. In the quiet corners of the garden, children knelt beside their elders, curiosity bright in their eyes as hands brushed through warm, fragrant soil. Older voices, soft but steady, named each plant and told stories woven from memory. Which leaves could be plucked for soup, which flowers might soothe the bee sting, and which roots should be left untouched. Little fingers traced the veins of lettuce, sorrel, and mint, learning to spot the slight gloss of a safe leaf and the warning tinge of something bitter or wild. Elderly hands demonstrated the gentle pinch needed to harvest a leaf without harming the plant, showing how a careful touch preserved future growth. As children watched and listened, they absorbed far more than names, gentle warnings, small rituals, and the importance of giving thanks for even the smallest green sprout. Each lesson in the garden was a gift carried beyond that moment, into kitchens and through the turning seasons. Children learned to respect the slowness of nature, understanding that every taste had its time. Lettuce in the cool mornings of spring, robust cabbages as autumn's chill arrived. Stories from elders ran alongside these lessons, blending caution with laughter. Tales of a careless child who once sampled a shadowed mushroom, or how a bitter herb could turn sweet if prepared with a patient hand. Every gathering of edible plants became a small ceremony marked by care, curiosity, and trust and guidance handed down with warmth. These lessons, repeated with each new seed and each returning season, rooted children in their families' stories and the land's quiet language, ensuring that the knowledge would live on softly, steadily, and always in tune with the garden's gentle wisdom. In the peaceful rhythm of medieval life, Food was never just a matter of filling one's belly. Each meal, each bite, was woven from the labor and care of many hands, and every ingredient carried a story older than the recipe itself. Lettuce leaves, crisp and glistening, spoke of the patience of gardeners, the optimism of a family welcoming spring, and the wisdom of those who watched the clouds and waited for just the right rain. When a mother or grandmother placed a humble salad on the table, it was more than a dish. It was a gentle celebration of the season, a sign that the household remained connected to the land and its ancient promises. The food that graced their wooden tables became a silent language of love, gratitude, and memory, strengthening the bonds that held each family together in a world shaped by nature's strengths and limits. Beyond simple nourishment, meals offered comfort, tradition, and sometimes even a measure of hope. Sharing bread, passing greens, or stirring a pot of stew became ways to show care, to anchor a wandering mind after a long, uncertain day, or to comfort a neighbor who faced hardship or loss. Through the rhythm of recipes and feasts, food held the power to unite and heal, to mark the return of sunlight or the passing of darkest winter. When plates were cleared and candles guttered low, the echoes of the meal lingered. Soft laughter, a child's question, the gentle weight of lessons learned across generations. In each act of gathering, cooking, and sharing, food built meaning that lasted long after flavors faded, binding people to the earth, to each other, and to the slow, generous turning of time itself. Late in the afternoon, as the village square glowed with the colors of evening, a traveling merchant arrived, leading a sturdy pony and carrying baskets filled with treasures from distant fields and markets. The merchant's voice, quick and lively, drew a small crowd near his stall draped with colorful cloth. With a flourish, he revealed bundles of unfamiliar herbs, leaves shaped like spades, sprigs dotted with tiny blue flowers, and stalks that smelled sharp and fresh. Elders leaned close, their hands hovering above the new greens, curious and cautious at once. The merchant spoke of places beyond the hills and rivers, where salads grew wild and gardeners experimented with combinations not seen in these parts. He told tales of sour sorrel from the northern forests, fragrant burnet leaves from monasteries further south, and a spicy cress so lively it could make even the sleepiest child sit up. Children pressed between mothers' skirts, wide-eyed as the merchant described how these herbs could be mixed with simple lettuce to create flavors both strange and delightful. Recipes and snippets of advice passed quickly from hand to hand. A pinch of this herb would add color, a handful of that would bring an unexpected sharpness to an otherwise mild salad. Some villagers exchanged coins or traded eggs for a small bunch, eager to try something new, while others watched and listened, content for the moment to gather stories rather than greens. The merchant's laughter, threaded with the gentle wisdom of someone who had seen many kitchens and many seasons, left a trace of excitement in the village air. The news of unusual salad herbs lingered long after the baskets emptied, weaving a fresh thread through the patchwork of local flavors, and adding a note of wonder to the humble lettuce that had long been at the heart of everyday meals. The story of lettuce was not bound by one village or garden, but woven through slow, careful exchange across hills and valleys, rivers and dusty roads. Lettuce seeds, small and light as a whisper, traveled in linen pouches tucked into merchants' wagons, or hidden with coins in the hems of a traveler's cloak. Some crossed borders by riverboat, mixed among shipments of grains, or pressed against the fragrant bundles of distant spices. Monks, journeying between monasteries in the hope of sharing knowledge and healing, pressed seeds into wax or sealed glass jars, carrying them into new valleys where the climate and earth would shape the leaves differently. Each generation of gardeners added something of their own care and patience to these seeds, selecting the sturdiest, savoring the greenest, and passing the remaining treasures onward. In every new place, lettuce began again, adjusting to the pattern of sun and soil, to the taste and customs of those who nurtured it. Some villages learned to favor curly varieties, while others marveled at deep green heads that held on through sudden cold. As the seeds spread, so too did stories and advice. Letters and spoken tales followed the routes of merchants and travelers, describing when to sow, how to water, which signs from the sky promised the best harvest. A pouch of seeds became a quiet gift, offered at weddings or exchanged by neighbors as the seasons changed, carrying with it a promise of tomorrow's growth. The journey was never hurried, always shaped by the patient steps of those who valued what humble greens could do. Over time, the slow spread of lettuce sowed a kind of kinship between distant lands, linking people through their gardens and their hopes, so that a single meal of fresh leaves could connect one kitchen to many others, near and far. Beneath a wide, gentle sky, the medieval countryside stretched out in a quiet, endless patchwork. Fields of every shade rippled together. Soft green where lettuce and spring herbs grew, silver gold where barley and wheat reached for the sun, and deeper browns where the earth waited to be seeded again. Paths wound between the patches like slender veins, marked by the footprints of farmers, wandering animals, and the soft rolls of cartwheels. Ancient trees towered at the field's edges, their branches rustling and whispering above thickets of wild roses and gooseberry bushes. Farmhouses, roofed with weathered wooden shingles or bundles of straw, stood dotted throughout the land, smoke curling slowly from their chimneys and mingling with the morning mist. Here and there, small ponds mirrored the drifting clouds, while beyond every ridge, another quiet valley promised more life and slow, steady work. The breeze played its own quiet tune across the landscape, weaving gently through the tall grass and setting the fields all in motion. Lettuce leaves fluttered like the wings of resting birds, while the wheat shifted in soft waves that flashed gold with every tilt of the sun. At a distance, the lowing of cattle and the easily recognized calls of village dogs drifted through the air, punctuated now and then by a lark's clear song. Everything moved at the pace of the breeze and the steady rhythm of patient hands tending the soil. Time felt quiet and full here, as if the world itself took a breath and waited for the next story to unfold. In this calm countryside, even the smallest things, a single blade of grass or the shadow of a cloud, seemed touched by peace. The gently swaying fields, alive with new growth, and under the watchful care of old hands, offered their simple promise with each passing day, that life continued, slowly and surely, nourished by sun, earth, and the quiet persistence of those who called this land home. As the seasons circled through the medieval year, villagers grew attuned to the quiet diversity found among their salad greens. Lettuce was familiar and cherished, but it was just the start of a larger, living palette that changed with rain, temperature, and the hands that cared for it. In one row of the garden, there might be a pale, butter-soft variety with leaves so tender they tore with a whisper. In the next, a curly green that snapped with a satisfying crunch and kept its shape beneath dressing or cheese. Wild sorrel poked up with its sharp, lemony taste, as lively as spring itself, while peppery cress brought a touch of fire, waking up even the dullest bread. Dandelion leaves, gathered before their flowers blazed gold, were favored by some for their gentle bitterness, and by others for the stories that came with them, passed down with as much care as planting instructions. Each green, no matter how small or fleeting, carried its own subtle difference in taste, texture, or scent. Some grew best in the cool shadow of a fence or fruit tree, clinging tightly to the morning dew, while others stretched bravely into the sun and offered thicker leaves when days turned hot. Families cherished their preferences and local customs, sometimes saving the mildest, palest leaves for young children, and mixing stronger varieties for adults who had come to crave their boldness. Meals became an exploration of the garden's quiet treasures. The smooth coolness of new lettuce, the crisp bite of watercress, the soft, earthy edge of young beet greens. Savoring these differences was a lesson in the land's generosity. teaching everyone that there was rarely just one way to bring freshness to the table. The small, ever-changing chorus of salad greens served as a daily reminder that life's richness lingered in nuance and variety. In medieval times, lettuce was neither an everyday staple nor a sight taken for granted. Before trade-in farming made year-round abundance possible, lettuce was rare outside its short season, something both precious and awaited. Gardeners guarded the seeds carefully through winter, storing them in dry pouches on warm shelves or tucked inside bundles of herbs. When spring finally coaxed the earth awake, the first fragile shoots of lettuce were greeted with quiet celebration. Farmers watched each green leaf unfurl with hope, knowing that a single frost or hungry bird could undo weeks of waiting. Gathering lettuce for the table was an act met with a special kind of gladness, often reserved for moments to mark the return of sunlight and the promise of gentle days ahead. Its arrival was a sure sign of nature's slow renewal, and families sometimes shared the first bowl as an unspoken blessing for the season to come. Because lettuce was so dependent on the whims of weather and soil, it held a value far beyond its taste and texture. Markets might see only a handful of baskets filled with crisp greens, snapped up quickly by those lucky or wealthy enough to afford them. For most, lettuce became a gift shared with family or given to a neighbor as a gesture of goodwill. A bundle of leaves handed over the garden fence meant more than any coin. At festivals, when bowls of fresh salad appeared in the village square, every serving was savored, each mouthful a reminder of patience, care, and the excellence of early spring harvest. Unlike today, when lettuce fills shelves in every season and city, medieval villagers treasured its brief window of plenty. In their world, a simple bowl of lettuce could carry the joy of the coming season and the comfort of old rhythms, remaining, in memory and story, a symbol of nature's best and most fleeting gifts. In the calm heart of the kitchen, late afternoon light slipped softly through small windows, laying pale gold across shelves and stone. Wooden bowls sat ready on the table, lined up beside a deep basin filled with cool water drawn by hand from the village well. A mother or grandmother sorted through bunches of fresh herbs and greens, lettuce, mint, chervil, and wild sorrel, her hands moving slowly, full of patience and long practice. Each leaf was gently loosened from its stem, shaken free of soil, then dipped into the water and swirled with careful fingers. The sound was a quiet, steady rhythm, subtle splashes and the delicate brush of leaves against the bowl, the occasional sigh as grit or the tiniest snail was found and set aside. Children watched in thoughtful silence, learning by example the strength and tenderness needed to handle the garden's harvest. These small rituals, repeated day after day, turned a simple task into a moment of mindfulness and gratitude. Washing lettuce and herbs was more than cleaning food. It was a way to honor the effort it took for each green thing to reach the table. The water grew scented with the fresh cut of stems and leaves, the air inside filling with green, living quietness. With every careful motion, inspecting a leaf for hidden blemishes, stacking finished herbs on a clean cloth, the task became an invitation to slow down and reflect. Sometimes, as dusk crept closer, candles were lit, and their glow turned every droplet into a tiny star, promising that the meal to come would be worth waiting for. In the hush of the kitchen, with water on their hands and spring scent in the air, families found a quiet connection to the land, their food, and to each other, knowing that this gentle care was part of what made each meal feel complete. For many medieval villagers, the garden's offerings brought moments of genuine surprise to the table. The first bite into early spring lettuce might have seemed soft and bright, cooling the mouth in a way no preserved root or last season's cabbage ever could. The unexpected sweetness of a young, pale leaf made it a quiet treasure, while the slight bite of wild sorrel or the sharp edge of cress might cause a pause, a sudden flicker of curiosity on a child's face. Sometimes, dandelion greens gathered before their golden blooms arrived added a bitter note that lingered, making the next mouthful of bread taste even more comforting. Even the textures brought wonder: the gentle crackle of fresh lettuce, the rough chew of beet greens, the velvet gloss of mint between the teeth. Each change in taste marked the passage of weeks and the shifting moods of the earth. No two bowls of salad ever quite the same from month to month. The ordinary meal, then, became something almost magical, a quiet adventure built from whatever the garden and wild places gave up that day. Eaters learned to expect delight in every unexpected hint, maybe a faint peppery warmth in the back of the throat, a burst of coolness after a long day's work, or the rich, earthy finish of greens pulled from shadowed soil. Meals that started with salad became lessons in mindfulness, teaching families to notice and appreciate not only the greens' flavors, but the ways they changed with rain, sun, age, and care. For children raised on the gentle sameness of winter fare, the first crisp taste of spring's lettuce was proof that the world could surprise and renew itself. Even the smallest shift, a softer leaf, a spicier bite, an unfamiliar tang, became moments to remember and share, binding families closer to the land and to each other through a simple, shared wonder at what truly fresh food could be. Behind silent stone walls, the monastery garden woke with first light, dew shimmering on every leaf and blade. A monk moved quietly between the raised beds, his coarse robe brushing the fragrant herbs at the path's edge. In one hand he carried a small wooden trowel, worn smooth by careful work, and in the other, a basket lined with linen. The garden was a patchwork of color and texture, lettuce curling in soft rows, parsley glowing bright beside low clusters of thyme, and slender beet leaves winking with drops of water. He paused beside each plant, kneeling to loosen the earth, or gently gather a handful of leaves, humming a low chant that mingled with birdsong and the distant toll of the morning bell. The air felt calm and deliberate, every task performed with the same quiet reverence given to the monastery's prayers. Sunlight traced golden lines across the stone as the monk watered the lettuce, careful to avoid the young shoots just breaking from the soil. With practiced fingers, he inspected each leaf for pests or damage, whispering gratitude for what had grown, and patience for what would need more time. The garden was not only a place for food, but also for healing and wisdom. The lettuce he tended today might flavor a simple meal, soothe a weary brother, or lend its coolness to a gentle remedy. Bees drifted among the flowers, their steady work a soft echo of the monk's own rhythm. When his basket was full, he stood and looked across the neat beds, his heart as calm and grounded as the green world around him. In the hush of the monastery garden, tending lettuce and herbs was a quiet devotion, a daily practice that honored the earth's gifts as deeply as any prayer spoken behind chapel walls. The days within the monastery moved in gentle, measured lines, guided by the tolling of the bell and the soft pulse of prayer. Each morning began at first light, when the brothers rose and filed quietly into the stone chapel, their voices joining in low, steady chants that echoed gently through vaulted halls. After prayer, the monks turned to their daily tasks, some to study and copy ancient texts, others to carpentry, sewing, or tending the gardens. The world within these walls was calm and slow. In the garden, the same patience shaped every action, gathering dew-damp greens beneath the hush of dawn, carrying baskets to the kitchens as sunbeams moved across the cloister walk. Each motion, whether turning the soil or harvesting lettuce, was shaded by mindfulness, a touch of devotion infusing even the humblest work. Food preparation was itself a quiet harmony, unfolding as steadily as the passing hours. Monks moved with practiced ease beside wide wooden tables, sorting greens, slicing roots, and setting aside bundles of herbs tied with twine. There was little rush, only the gentle rhythm of cooperation, one washing leaves with cool well water, another preparing bread, while a third stirred soup in a deep iron pot. Shallow bowls and rough-hewn spoons were laid in neat rows, their humble settings becoming altars to simple gratitude. At mealtimes, the brothers gathered in the refectory, receiving the day's fare: a bowl of vegetable pottage, hearty bread, and perhaps a fresh salad if the garden was generous. Silence would fill the room, except for the soft clink of dishes and the quiet murmur of thanks. In this peaceful pattern, every meal became a true blessing, both meeting the body's needs and feeding the soul with the steady comfort of shared purpose and quiet prayer. The act of gardening became a quiet meditation for those tending medieval earth. Each step into the plot, each bend to smooth the soil or check a tender sprout, was slow and full of purpose. Gardeners learned to move without hurry, their eyes following the path of the sun or the slow arc of clouds, their minds calmed by the patient repetition of simple tasks. Pulling weeds, mounding new beds, watering with care, these actions required attention, but not worry. The worries of the world faded into the background, replaced by a quiet listening, the sound of breeze in the leaves, the trickle of water passing through earth, a bird's song threading through the soft spell of early morning. In these moments, mind and hands came together, gently reminding each gardener that tending the soil was not just work, but a practice in patience and gratitude. This meditative connection stretched from field to table, shaping every part of the day's food. The lettuce, herbs, and roots grown with such attention carried more than taste. They held the memory of time spent and care given. Meals prepared with this mindfulness became more than daily routines. They were woven with intention, every leaf and root a marker of someone's steady devotion. Those who gathered to eat felt this quiet magic lingering in every bite, a sense of closeness to the earth and to each other that could not be hurried or bought. Even children, learning the rhythm of hands and dirt, absorbed lessons in slowness and gratitude. In this way, food became both nourishment and reflection, a celebration of partnership with nature, teaching all who took part that the small, steady rituals of gardening linked the restless hours of life to something peaceful, lasting, and deeply rooted in the world. As dusk settled softly against the walls of the cottage, the kitchen filled with a warm, golden hush. The fire in the hearth burned low, casting gentle shadows that flickered over wooden shelves and the old stone floor. On the table, a modest meal slowly came together. A pot of lentil stew simmered with onions and herbs. A fresh loaf of bread sat tucked in a linen cloth, and a small bowl held a few handfuls of lettuce leaves, picked just before sunset. The lettuce was washed and torn with care, arranged with a drizzle of oil and a scattering of mint, its cool, pale green offering a promise of calm after a busy day. The scent from the garden lingered on the leaves, mixing with the aroma of soup and firewood, and the simple act of sharing food in the quiet evening soothed tired minds and hands. As the family gathered, their conversation settled into comfortable murmurs, the day's worries softened by the peace of the meal. Each bite of lettuce was crisp and gentle, the coolness of the leaves a quiet contrast to spoonfuls of warm stew. The children, wrapped in the calm of routine, tasted the freshness of the garden in every mouthful, learning to savor the texture and the care that brought the greens from soil to table. The parents, with slow movements and grateful glances, saw more than food in these greens. They saw the turning of the seasons, the patience of tending, the reward given by simple effort and time. As the sun faded and candles flickered, the bowl was passed until all that remained were a few dewdrops and threads of green. In this small, mindful meal, lettuce held its humble place as a gentle gift, an anchor to calm, a taste of the earth, and a reminder that peace was often found in the quiet, familiar rituals that ended the day. The people of medieval villages learned early to respect the idea of balance, both in the rhythms of their days and the food placed upon their tables. Meals rarely overflowed with abundance, so every element served a purpose: hearty grains for energy, roots for fullness, herbs for healing, and green leaves for renewal and calm. Cooks and healers often spoke of finding harmony between warm and cool foods, soft and strong flavors, and fresh and preserved ingredients. Lettuce, with its gentle crispness and cooling spirit, was valued as a way to refresh bodies during spring's energy or summer's warm afternoons. It was offered sparingly, blended with other greens, or served alone when the land was generous. The smallest bowl could make a difference, rounding out a meal built from barley stew, roasted onions or smoked fish, and infusing the body with the green promise of the new season. Plants, in their many forms, helped families adjust their diets throughout the ever-changing year. As the days grew long and work in the fields demanded strength, villagers relied on dense breads and hearty beans, yet no one forgot the need for foods that cleansed and soothed. A handful of lettuce, a pinch of mint, or the sharp spark of sorrel could brighten even the simplest supper or help tired minds rest. Children learned from their elders that a good meal was not just about filling one's belly, but about listening to the body's quiet needs and the signals of the world around them. The earth dictated what was available: roots in winter, greens in spring, and the fruits of labor in the warm months. By honoring this balance and treating each plant with care, medieval families built a life where the gifts of nature were never wasted, and every meal, no matter how simple, became a gentle lesson in patience, adaptability, and quiet gratitude. As the last whispers of daylight faded beyond the rooftops, the kitchen was wrapped in a gentle golden glow. The sun's rays slipped softly through the small, wavy window panes, casting rippling patterns of light and shadow onto rough wooden beams and the stone floor below. Everything in the room was touched by this final warmth: the edge of a bread loaf, the copper rim of a kettle, the folds of a linen towel left to dry. Dust motes drifted lazily, caught in the narrow beams like tiny dancers, turning and glittering as the light grew slow and tender. Each quiet moment felt suspended in time, the day's noise and bustle falling away, replaced by a comforting hush that settled between the walls like a familiar blanket. The family, gathered around the table, moved in the softened air, voices low and laughter drifting easily. Candles were lit, and their glow mingled with the last blush of daylight, deepening the gentle mood and painting faces with warmth and calm. The world outside the window blurred into a blue twilight as gardens and fences faded, and the sky grew wide and deep. Pots and bowls were pushed aside, hands were washed in cool water, and the rhythm of night quietly took hold. In this mellow hour, the soft light soothed tired eyes and drew everyone closer together. As bread was broken and the meal's last crumbs collected, the kitchen became a sanctuary, a place where the delicate promise of rest could be felt in every golden gleam, every shadow softened by care, and every shared breath as one day closed and another prepared to begin. As the centuries turned and new ideas traveled along dusty roads and through bustling marketplaces, the old beliefs that once surrounded lettuce began to fade. Word spread from healers who read fresh pages of herbal wisdom, from merchants who carried news between distant towns, and from scholars whose careful hands copied books into the light of new understanding. Village families heard how some of the mysteries of food could be explained not by dream or superstition, but by the patient question and answer of those who watched, tasted, and learned. Gradually, stories of lettuce causing lethargy or bad dreams gave way to trust and observation. Children who ate a few leaves before bed woke rested, and older folks learned that moderation often mattered more than fear. Conversations around the table shifted. Warnings softened, and curiosity about the plant's cool, crisp nature grew. These changes crept in quietly, as soft as moss covering old stones, gently reshaping what was once known. Still, even as modern knowledge took hold, something gentle remained in the way lettuce was respected and enjoyed. The careful habits formed by generations, washing leaves with patience, savoring the first bowl of spring greens, pausing to notice the coolness of every bite, carried forward the kindness and caution that old beliefs had taught. The value of the plant and the rituals that surrounded it lived on in new ways. Lettuce became a simple pleasure, one now understood with clearer eyes, but still wrapped in the soft memory of earlier seasons. The fading of superstition did not mean forgetting the past. It invited a sense of gratitude for what those before had noticed, wondered, and hoped. Even as the world grew wiser, the act of sharing lettuce around the table kept the spirit of quiet care alive, a gentle echo of old wisdom, blending with the freshness of a new day. As dawn crept over the rooftops, a gentle light swept across the garden's winding paths, revealing every subtle shade of green. The world felt hushed, save for the soft calls of waking birds and the distant gurgle of water from a clay jug at the well. Dew sparkled like tiny pearls on the lettuce leaves, each drop trembling on the edges and pooling in the folds. The air was clean, full of earth scent and the promise of growth. Barefoot in the cool grass, a young villager moved slowly between the rows, careful not to disturb the quiet order of the morning. Every step brought a new discovery, a beetle hidden beneath the crisp curve of a leaf, the delicate web of a spider strung between two stems, or the sweet, sharp aroma of the mints growing nearby. Time wandered in these early hours, unhurried and gentle, and the whole garden seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the sun's warmth to dry the last of the dew. In this peaceful moment, the rows of lettuce, lush and spreading, felt like a gift from both earth and season. The villager knelt to touch a leaf, cool and soft beneath their hand, savoring its firmness and the miracle of how quickly it had grown since the first planting just weeks ago. Here, among the quiet, every sense awakened, fingers sticky with dew, lips tasting the memory of the last salad, eyes drinking in the subtle play of light and green. Even the air seemed gentler, filled with the soft rustle of leaves and the whisper of the morning breeze. The walk, quiet and slow, was a kind of meditation, a chance to admire the world's patient work and to carry a handful of lettuce back home. With each walk, the garden offered a reminder that even the simplest places, rows of humble greens under an open sky, could bring a feeling of wonder, gratitude, and calm that lingered long past breakfast's first bite. Through the centuries, lettuce has been much more than an ordinary green in the garden or a simple element of supper. It has acted as a living thread, binding together hands and hopes from many ages, each harvest a memory of patience, care, and life lived at the gentle pace of the seasons. Its presence in humble gardens told stories of families learning when to sow and when to wait, of elders passing on quiet superstitions, and of children's first taste of crisp spring after winter's gray. Everything about lettuce, from the cool dew on its leaves to the soft crunch and clean taste, invites us to imagine quieter worlds and the simple wisdom of those who watched, listened, and learned from each year's tender crop. Even today, the act of tending, harvesting, and sharing lettuce carries an echo of that ancient comfort, a reminder that the best parts of daily life often grow unnoticed until we pause and look with gentle intention. In this way, lettuce serves as a gentle window into the slow, thoughtful rhythm of the past, a rhythm shaped by hands in the soil, conversations around a kitchen table, and the soft murmurs of a village winding down at dusk. Each leaf, picked and washed with care, brings the past quietly forward, offering its humble gift to anyone with the patience to savor it. Eating lettuce becomes more than nourishment. It becomes a moment of presence, a whisper from those who came before, that beauty and meaning are found not in abundance or speed, but in slow, mindful acts. When we look at lettuce through this lens, we reconnect with the universal human story of growing, gathering, and finding comfort in the quiet. A timeless peace passed, like the seeds themselves, gently from hand to hand and heart to heart. As the day's light eases into dusk and quiet returns to kitchen and garden alike, there is comfort in remembering how much meaning can hide within the most modest foods. Lettuce, with its gentle form and patient spirit, serves as a living link between past and present, a small reminder that the world's great stories often rest in the smallest, simplest moments. Each quiet, careful meal is stitched together from the hands and hopes of ancestors, echoed in the gentle tasks of washing, sharing, and tasting. In letting ourselves slow down and notice the cool crispness, the green fragrance, and the thoughtful preparation, we reconnect with those who cherished these everyday acts long ago. The cycles of planting, gathering, and eating move quietly on, inviting us to join their peaceful rhythm and find gratitude in the plainest gifts the earth can offer. Tonight, as you settle into rest, let thoughts wander down the narrow paths of old gardens and into the humble kitchens where time moved softly and every meal was a promise of care. Imagine the quiet lessons, whispered advice, and laughter passed between generations, held in the tender shaping of a salad or the simple blessing spoken over bread. Trust that even now, in a changing world, calm can be found in honoring the rituals of daily life and savoring the unhurried bounty of each season. Simple foods, like lettuce, gathered at dawn and eaten in gentle company, hold more than nourishment. They keep the presence of history alive, grounding us in slowness and comfort. With every restful breath, let this gentle truth remain. Peace comes in returning to what is pure, simple, and quietly shared, inviting us all to let go, reflect, and rest easy in the richness of ordinary days.